We're super lucky to have Dave here to chat to us about how product leaders drive AI adoption at their companies. But before we get into that, just a few housekeeping points. Please do stay on mute just while Dave is speaking. And if you have questions, stick them in the chat, and then he can pick them up sort of when it's a good kind of point in his flow, and we don't have too much background noise. Secondly, we are recording this whole call, so if you have to leave early, then it'll be on our YouTube channel well, by tomorrow. I'm going to drop a few links in the chat. So I will drop link to our Luma where you can register for future events, link to YouTube where you'll get Dave's recording after this. And I'll also be sharing Dave's LinkedIn URL if you want to connect with him, because I know he posts a lot about this and he has his own podcast and does lots of wonderful things as well. With that, I'll get out of the way. Dave, over to you.
Okay, so where do I go? I mean, there's a lot of stuff on my podcast that I put out there in terms of ways of dancing with AI more effectively. I'll recap them. And what I'd like to do is actually dive into something which I've not yet released, which has blown my socks off over the last maybe 3, 4 weeks. I'm recording a podcast on that today, so you get early access to it. And just to kind of recap, back in, when was it? February of last year, it was ProductCon London. And I saw some people in the chat have seen that session. And I was asked to go and present to people on AI, to product geeks on AI. And I thought, well, surely, like really, like surely everyone understands what's possible, right? So I felt like a bit of an idiot going on stage, quite frankly, thinking like everyone's going to know this stuff already. And the reaction was bonkers. People like their jaw were on the floor because no one really has time, unfortunately, in the world that we live in as product geeks to play with where the puck's going, right? And so it was a real honor. And since then, I've been giving this version of this talk to lots of different enterprise companies that want me in to wake up their exec and the wider org to the possibilities. But it's been, yeah, a crazy time with the last year, kind of showing this presentation to people. And I've even given this presentation and to, which one was it? Munich, the product festival in Munich. And that one was not that dissimilar to the one we gave in February of last year, and still jaws were on the floor. I even said to people at the end, like, guys, like, if you think you've just caught up with what's possible with AI right now, like the bulk of what's in here is like nearly a year old, and they're like, huh? Anyway, just to recap, my kind of take of the key pillars of what's in that presentation for you, and if you haven't seen it, it is on YouTube. The first thing is the importance of speech to text. I've been talking about this to anyone that will listen to me for the last 2.5 years. Only recently has Reid Hoffman been saying he's been voice pilled, because it's just the most effective thing to get more time back in our day, right? The problem is we're so busy, we haven't got the time to figure out how to play and dance with AI. But if you just do this first thing of downloading FlowVoice.ai or SuperWhisper.com and playing and using voice to guide your AI, it's just so effective. We type at the best of us 75 words a minute, and me as an Irishman, depending on how enthusiastic I am about the topic at hand, can be 220, and miraculously the AI understands me. So I would say the first thing you all need to do, if you're not doing it at all yet, is please lean in to voice, get comfortable with it. My husband doesn't like doing it. He's very British. And I'm like, look, just say I love you, say thank you. And I'm convinced psychologically that shifts your relationship to become an awful lot more natural with the AI. Double clicking into this voice piece as well, one other thing is very important is when you're on Claude or ChatGPT, but Claude is better for it. Just dump a bunch of voice notes in before you do it. Say to Claude, hey, I'm going to give you a bunch of voice notes on a particular topic. I want you to create like a business case for me on XYZ. And Claude, when I submit them, you're just going to take them. And when I say the magic word process, turn it into the document. It's a very effective way of actually getting a real bunch of great content out of the AI. Just go dump the voice note, dump the voice note, dump the voice note, and better still, do it outside, outdoors, and have these ideas come to you, submit them, and you're off to the races. So that's the first pillar of voice to text. Very, very effective. And I think it's so much more important now, particularly what we're seeing with the likes of like if you were in Cursor and you're using multi-agents, which I'll show you in a second, you've got lots of agents working for you. You can't keep up with them. We become the bottleneck, right? So again, voice becomes hugely important for that. So that's really, really, and there's another theme as well, which I find really helpful when working with the AI is flipping, what I call flipping the script. And so you end up basically have the AI coach out of you the context it thinks it needs to get the job done. What I mean by that is a lot of us kind of go in and we just dump in a bunch of files and context into the AI. But actually, what we did was came up with an idea where we created a prompt that stands up a virtual product manager and a virtual designer. And basically, you give it a shitty idea, a very vague idea. And then the virtual PM, the virtual designer, comes in to the chat to ask you clarifying questions. A very, very effective way. And then you just go in through voice, answer all the questions, and then boom, you have the whole PRD that's much, much better and more solid and rock solid. There's also one of actually creating a resume, right? Again, have the prompt ask you for the context from your roles. What did you achieve? So if you engineer the prompts to become these kind of coaching prompts, again, a really massive unlock for you in terms of how to dance more effectively with the AI. Cool, cool, cool. I'm going to pause there. I don't know how these sessions normally work. Are the questions throughout, or do I just go and rant throughout the entire bit, or what would you like?
Usually we let people rant for 20, 30 minutes, and people can drop in questions as they go.
Cool.
If any seem particularly timely, I might kind of jump in and interrupt you, and otherwise we'll save them to the end, and then we can kind of go into more of an AMA style at the end.
Okay, okay, cool, cool, cool. I'm not going to do too much of the screen sharing, but I'm just going to just talk you through what I'm seeing at the moment that's particularly exciting me. So I've been playing with Claude, using Claude talking to, and it can be Claude or OpenAI, or any one of them, Gemini, and so on, talking to text files on my computer. And so I've had this PKM system, project management, sorry, knowledge management system. And what it's doing, it's got all of the transcripts from my meetings, it's got all my projects, it's got all my to-dos, it's got my people pages, all of that stuff. And I've been using Obsidian for this, which you may have seen before. But now, because those text files are on your computer anyway, if you open up Terminal or you go into, say, Cursor, you can start chatting to those text files, right? You can start saying, well, what do I owe Andrew as a promise? What am I meeting? What did I last discuss with him in the last project? You can start basically going back and forth on it. That was great for the last 8 months for me. But the more content, the more meeting transcripts you add in to the system, the more brittle it becomes, right? And so there was a huge concept that came out there recently, probably about a month and a half ago, from the team at Every. Every is a media company. Sign up to them. Please follow them if you're not already. And particularly Dan Shipper on Twitter, X. And they are seen as the poster child for actually how a modern company should work when it comes to agents and the workflow, right? They came out with a system, an idea, and a concept called compound engineering. Compound engineering is about this idea that the more features you add into your system, the more complex that system becomes, the more costly it becomes to build upon. And so what they've done is they built this plugin for Claude Code that essentially says, well, the more we build features through AI using Cursor and Claude Code, the smarter it becomes. Learnings files get created and get injected at the start of another chat. And everybody was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I was like, hold on a second, from a first principles point of view, could I apply that to my PKM system? So could I actually have a self-learning system that actually the more I dance with my PKM, it actually starts to learn itself. And so that was something I applied, which I'll show you in a second, which is a complete unlock. But one big unlock for me was a thing called hooks from Claude Code. Hooks are something that basically listens in at your chat, and there's trigger events. So in Claude Code, which Claude is powered by, so if you use Claude on desktop or web, or you're basically using Claude Code underneath, essentially. Claude Code has these hooks that get triggered by certain things happening in a chat. And so now with hooks, which I'll show you in a second, I now have this system that listens in for any feedback I'm giving it. It listens in for any mistakes it's making. It listens in, for example, Claude's developing at such a clip right now. I have a hook that every time I do a daily plan, which you'll see in a second, it goes to Claude's change log and works out what have they released in the last 24 hours. And then the AI comes to me and says, Dave, based on this knowledge management system that we've been working on together, based on these new capabilities that have just been released, I think we could improve our system if we implement. Are you okay if I build it? Honest God. So now my PK, I don't even have to worry and read the bloody blogs anymore about what's happening, right? I've got the whole thing looking at it. I've gone into Cursor and I said, oh, by the way, can you also check out the Reddit community for Claude Code as well while you're at it? Thank you. So, it's bonkers, right? So, what I'm about to show you is this golden opportunity to build out a personal knowledge management system that, quite frankly, just by having a chat with it, you can get it to do with whatever you want. So, I'm going to pause there for a second. Ed, are you okay if I go ahead and demo, or do you want
Yeah,
to
I think
chat?
that'd be great. I think people would love to see this because it's these things are quite can be, some people will be deep in Claude Code, I know, and others won't have even opened it yet. And so I think
Yeah.
really seeing it and seeing someone like a power user like you actually use it and navigate around is going to be a
Cool.
real unlock for some people.
Okay. And by the way, I'm winging this. I haven't done a demo of this at all yet, so I'm hoping nothing too sensitive gets revealed. What I might do, actually, let me just think about it. Bear with me. Okay. Let me take you into Cursor. Okay. So this is Cursor. Cursor, for folk on the call, is an IDE. There's others available that you can use, anti-gravity from Google and so on. But I love Cursor, and there's a free version of this available, right? And so what's great with Cursor is for the free version, you don't get Claude 4.5 Opus, but you do get Sonnet, for a few bits of certain limited usage. But honest to God, if you pay 20 quid a month for this, you're getting Claude in there anyway. So I would say if you're weighing up choosing one between the other, ditch your Claude subscription, get your Cursor subscription, and then use Claude in Cursor. Ideally, you might have both in your company. But anyway, that's Cursor. And so Cursor in here, what you'll see on the left-hand side is all of the files I have in my system. But again, like I never even look at that. I don't have to worry with AI where things are going anymore. I just let it just file itself away. It knows where everything is for me. And quite frankly, if I look at all this, I'll just get a headache. So I just always just have this all switched off all the time. And now if I was to go in here and say, for example, so what I've got in my system is I've got company pages, I've got personal pages for people internally, externally. I've got projects, I've got to-dos, I've got weekly goals. And that's the kind of the core guts of it right now. But and again, through voice, I can just say, hey, look, hey, Claude, I'm catching up with Jen today for one-to-one. Can you remind me what I promised her and what she promised me? Thank you. Love you. And now what it's going to start doing, it will know my Claude MD file is says in the Claude MD file. The Claude MD file is the brain of how your Claude works. So every time you do any interaction, Claude MD with its set of instructions gets invoked. And it says, always look for the person's folder to find out which Jen Day is talking about, right? And so now it's pulled everything up for me. It's got everything there. If I do say, what I'm going to do now, a daily plan. This is a command in Claude, so we create many of them. And so it's just a hash, forward slash. And I've got a whole bunch of different commands in here. One's a prompt improver. And so again, you can see here what it's doing on the right-hand side. Just is what it's coming up. It's connected essentially to Anthropic's messages API, where I will then give it a ship prompt. It pings it over to Anthropic, and then using its prompt improver, it basically comes back with a War and Peace prompt in return. Now, you might think that's really complex to build, but what I'll show you here is the following. Hey, Claude, I'm just actually demoing the prompt improver functionality. Can you pretend that we haven't got that in the system right now? And let's start from scratch on how to build a prompt improver using Anthropic's messages API. Right, so I've just told it just to forget it has it. And now, and what I'm demoing to you here is just how easy it is to build all of these kind of capabilities, okay? So it's starting from fresh.
Dave,
Sorry,
did
go
you
ahead, Ed.
dictate that with SuperWhisper or something, a third party?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
FlowVoice.ai I'm using. I'm kind of moving more towards that than SuperWhisper. FlowVoice have had a ton more funding recently. In the beginning, I was a big advocate for SuperWhisper.com, but with FlowVoice's funding, I think it's probably the horse to back because SuperWhisper is just a one-man band at the moment. It's a very good product, but I think FlowVoice is hitting it for me.
Yeah.
So that's exactly it. So what I'll do is I'll go in here now and say, okay, look, can you help me create a command in Claude that will basically let me take a crappy prompt and then you pass it over to the Anthropic Messages API and return it to me. And what you'll do is you'll inject it rather than giving me back the actual return prompt, you'll inject it back into the chat itself. Right. And that's it. You're just having a chat with it. And it's now going to create you a command that you can then use It will ask you for an API key, which you can get, and that's it. You're done. It's so, so good. Like that's how easy it is to create commands. I went in the other day and well, so that's cooking. And by the way, I'm just showing you how you can get different agents running in parallel. So you can have all of these running in parallel at the same time on the right-hand side. And that's when your voice becomes important in this kind of a setting, right? Because you need to fire off more and more agents running at the same time. Um, yeah, so it's got
So
it
a
here.
couple of questions coming in there. A couple of people asking why you're not using Claude voice mode for this.
Yeah, so Claude Voice Mode, in here, do you mean this button down the bottom here? To be honest with you, I could do. With FlowVoice, what it does is anytime it pastes something in from a transcription, and if I go and edit something because it's actually um, spelled Ed's name wrong or something, I can go in, it will then create a learnings file itself, and so it won't make those mistakes again and again. So basically me using FlowVoice over many different applications in my system, that brain itself just improves far more effectively, I find. Cool, cool, cool.
Great.
I'm trying to think what else to show you. Like if I want to create an MCP server, you just literally go in and you have a chat and say, hey, can we create an MCP server to access my calendar and make sure that we pull in all my events into my PKM system, every day, and it'll do it for you. So again, just use your voice, have a chat. It's not technical at all. It's really, really easy to do. Um,
I think for people who haven't used MCPs or aren't familiar with them, maybe you could go a little bit deeper on that. Is that how
yeah,
you're getting context from your calendar, from your conversations into Cursor then?
yeah. What I'm going to do, I just realized I'm going to just go into a fresh install of a cursor in a second because it's just a bit easier to work with. Bear with me. I'll come back to that question. Okay. All right. This will be a better way of demoing. Okay. Right. So we basically now have nothing at all in terms of files in this Ed project. So I'll demo from here. It'll be a lot easier. Going back to your question, Ed. So MCP, MCP is kind of souped up APIs, infrastructure. But what's good about it, basically, it's a better way for AI to work with the content that comes through. If I was to go into Claude here and say, hey, can you create a task for me about this particular project and file it into Ed? Sometimes because of its probabilistic nature, it might do it different ways every single time I ask for the same question. Whereas when you create a tasks MCP server in here, in your instance, you can work with it to make sure that every time you ask something, the task is written in the same way. It's always, it always goes into the right projects, the right people. And so MCP acts as guardrails to make your system a little bit less, well, far less probabilistic and a lot more closer to being deterministic. It will never be foolproof, but MCP is a really, really good way to make sure your system has really strong guardrails for whatever way, for whatever kind of content you're bringing in, whether that's reading your granola transcripts, whether that's reading your calendar, whether that's reading, playing with tasks, whether that's kind of reviewing your projects. Generally, always going to have MCP work on that, and for any given use case is far more effective. With that in mind, I'm going to show you how easy this is. So, bum, 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 bum. I'd like you to build for me a tool that every Monday morning is going to pull down the latest transcripts from various different people I follow on YouTube. And then I want you then to extract those transcripts into a daily note, and you'll create a folder for me for where those notes should sit. That will tell me what's new, novel, and contrarian in those transcripts. Right. And this is brilliant, right? It's a massive unlock, this particular piece of capability, right? I follow about 60 people on YouTube. I don't get to see everybody. And now I've got this in my system. It's brilliant. So it's going to figure out itself what to do. What open source frameworks could it use? How could we get access to this content? And how can we create this automation? I mean, it's bonkers. It asks me questions. Okay, I'm going to build you the transcript analyzer. Okay, I'm going to accept all of this because it's creating stuff on my computer. It's creating the requirements. It's creating
And
Python file.
Dave, for
Um,
people's context here, do you have any kind of technical background at all, engineering background, or do you just kind of click the accept tool whenever one pops up?
I just actually I go. They call it YOLO. You only live once kind of mode in here, and I haven't got it set up in this particular space, but that's what I do. I accept everything. I just let it go to town. And there are certain settings in Cursor you can say, look, don't make changes to this part of your system. Delete everything on your hard drive. But generally speaking, just accept everything and let it go through. Yeah. Hence the whole term vibe coding. It's just like, yeah, whatever. Love you. Just make it happen. Thank you. But yeah, yeah. And it's brilliant, right? And so you just the takeaway for everybody here is to get into Cursor and just start creating these workflows, right? How can we process information? What tools do you have access to? And someone said to me the other day, "Oh well, Granola doesn't have an API." And I was like, "Well, let's see what the content is stored. All the transcripts are stored in my machine. Like, can Claude Code hack it and find out how to try to create its own MCP server? Yeah, no problem, Dave." you know, it's gone mental. The last 3 weeks with everything with Claude hooks and what's possible in here is just is quite frankly just bonkers, absolutely bonkers. And people just don't realize. And I'm still trying to get my head around it, um, in terms of what this means for how we work, right? How does the system of work itself change, right? How do roles change? What roles actually continue? What roles get dropped? What does that mean for our own personal growth, our career trajectory? Where should we be playing? I really think the next 6 months are going to be massively redefining, because of what we've seen in the last probably 3 or 4 weeks from Claude from Anthropic. Anthropic just released, by the way, just related to that, which I think is a major milestone, is this new tasks system. So over Christmas, a thing came out recently called Ralph Wiggum. Ralph Wiggum is a plugin people have heard of, yep. And Ralph Wiggum, what it does essentially is takes a long PRD and creates like a while loop. So what it's doing technically essentially is making sure that it creates these set of tests to make sure that everything ultimately gets implemented, and it just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. And you can say, hey, look, cycle through this PRD like max 40 times to keep your costs down low, but just make sure everything happens and works. And people are going away, leaving the laptops running overnight, and massively complex products are being built. So that took the Twitter sphere as such by storm over the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And Anthropic have brilliantly come back on that and said, no, 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 we're going to kill the Ralph Wiggum plugin, and now we're going to give essentially they've created this kind of tasks infrastructure which can sit over sessions. And so when you think about how that could work, is like you now have fantastic orchestration at the agent level. Agents can now spawn sub-agents, which can spawn sub-agents to get all of this work done. Each agent has its own 200K context window, which basically gets over this whole context issue that we've been having. And so really in the last 72 hours with this release, it's fundamentally changed the effectiveness of vibe coding. Yeah, everything is shifting basically a lot in the last month. So it's now done this for me. I have no idea what it's done. So I'm just going to say to, have you created a command for me? How do I use this? And yeah, and just keep asking questions. Here's how I use it. Okay, well, I don't want to do it that way. I'm not technical. So, okay. Sorry, I'm flicking too quickly. Fine, to get started, do all of this. Fine, to test it. Okay. Now I want to basically skip all of this, right? So I don't want to do anything in the terminal. Notes get, okay, that's perfect. Okay. Okay, I'm a complete idiot. I'm not technical at all. Can you sort all of this technical gubbins out for me and just make sure it all works? Thank you. Love you. Yeah, I mean, we're vibing. Now it's running that in the terminal for me, so I don't have to even do it. It's like, brilliant. I mean, yeah, crazy. I will ask me for an API key. That's one thing I do have to do. So while that's cooking up, Ed, any other questions as I'm going through all
Yeah,
this?
a couple more questions coming through in the chat. Alison was asking, do you need to provide your YouTube account info for it to find those people you're following?
No, what I've done in my other system was I just gave it a list of all my all the channel URLs. Ed's on there as well, and so yeah, then it just then goes to town that way, and then you don't have to give it any API access to your Google account. Basically, what it does is it takes an RSS feed of Ed's channel, and then using some open source code on GitHub for transcript extraction, it then deploys that against Ed's content and brings the content in and then summarizes it as podcast.
And then Michelle's asking if you have any concerns about privacy or your data being accessed by Claude in this way.
Not at all. No, I mean, there's a reason that Claude or Anthropic have such high enterprise penetration. They've actually, a year ago, I think OpenAI had double what Anthropic were doing, and now it's flipped the other way. Anthropic have now double the penetration of OpenAI within large enterprise. And to me, that's like a nice proxy, right? Because if you can sell into enterprise and they're doing things in the right way from a data point of view. I mean, I'm on the extreme, right? I give it my blood counts and I go, okay, help me. What should I see here? But again, I feel very safe doing it, because Anthropic are fantastic.
Yeah, great. Anurag's asking, are the URLs delivered via Markdown files, or do you use Markdown files for other instructions?
What do we? So what do you mean by that? Sorry, can you explain? Sorry.
Sorry, I meant you mentioned the Claude MD files at the start of this. I assumed you meant the Markdown files when you mentioned that as the baseline for the instructions.
Yeah. So the Claude MD or Claude.md is a file that's created within a project, and that has then the kind of the brains of how I and the AI should work together and what a particular project's about. So if you have a space in Cursor, and you have, say, several projects you're working on separately, you might want to have one Claude MD file that's kind of at a high level for your overall workspace, and then a Claude MD file that's specific to the project you're working on to tell it what the project's all about and all that kind of thing and where key documentation is. And then so that's one part of it. And then everything that gets created then on the left-hand side here, when it does generate files, they will all typically be Markdown files in my PKM system. Here, obviously, it's created like some other files, but typically Markdown files for knowledge.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and Markdown is basically the best way of kind of giving content to AI, really, generally.
Michael's asking if you could give a walk through the other tools you're using beyond Claude Code and Cursor. Are you still using ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, any of those kind of general LLMs?
Yeah. So Perplexity, absolutely. And quickly share my screen. A second. Just need to tidy up my desktop. 1 second. Okay. So I'll show you a few of the tricks. This desktop might be a bit too big. Is this okay? Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
Cool. So Perplexity for me, absolutely don't use Google anymore. Perplexity is amazing. And what's great about it then, if you have the app installed, you can then just kind of just command it, just doing a quick shortcut, right? What's the weather like in London for the rest of the week? And then it just goes in, right? So it's just a nice, quick, easy way to get access to anything within Perplexity, having the command key, and then it's just jumping straight in. So I'm all the time, just doing Command P, Command P, Command P for anything I'm trying to glean, right? Another thing as well is if you ever want to kind of extract any knowledge, any insights from Perplexity or any of the AI you're working with, there's a way to extract it as Markdown. And I find it really helpful when you're doing like a deep research report, have the Markdown extracted and throw that asset into your PKM system. And then that's extra fodder for the AI to work with, right? So it's a great way of kind of helping it improve. One of the things I do quite a lot within Cursor as well, Firecrawl, if you haven't used, again, a great tool. You can get lots of credits for not very much money, but essentially Firecrawl is the AI search. I think it's the tool out there for being able to kind of look at the internet's corpus of content and pull stuff back to you in an AI friendly way, a Markdown friendly way. So what I've done with Cursor is I've now integrated Firecrawl MCP server, and so anytime I'm doing research, Firecrawl does it for me, brings it back into the chat, And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Thank you very much. Now, can you create a markdown file for me, please, and put this into my knowledge? And again, so again, my system is compounding the more I'm kind of doing all of this research, right? So Firecall is another one. Perplexity is key. What else? What else am I using? Raycast. I'm using Raycast just to navigate and move around my system quite a lot. So Raycast, I don't know if people know what Raycast is, but essentially it's really cool. So you can go in here and it gives you access to all your most commonly used applications, but a whole bunch of like things like, you know, you can create snippets where I might kind of say, okay, if I do $W, and then that will then replace that then with this content. And so there's a lot with Raycast. Have a look at this great YouTube tutorials out there online. But yeah, my main use case tends to be kind of go into your clipboard and pull out recent stuff from your clipboard history. But Raycast, again, if you want to be a complete nerd to go down a rabbit hole of productivity, Raycast, definitely have a look at those YouTube videos on Raycast. What else AI-wise? Largely, I mean, that's typically the bulk of it, really, because I'm doing so much more now these days within Cursor. Anytime I'm trying to automate anything, anytime I'm trying to get any kind of content pipeline being pulled together, I will do it all through Cursor and add that into my PKM system. So that's kind of where I play most of my time is in there, and then having then various different MCP servers to pull stuff together. For example, if I'm going onto a customer call, I'll then use Pendo's MCP server. And so we can then pull in usage data from Pendo MCP server. I can look at Granola for all the call transcripts. I can pull in Salesforce and Clary from the sales forecasting point of view. All that comes together into a company page that I then just get an update on. But again, the team I'm trying to stress here is it's MCP. Fire up as many of them. Think about whatever tools you use in your company and think about, is there an MCP server? Hey, Claude, there's not. I can't find one any on GitHub. Let's make one and see what you get, right? Most of the tools you'll have access to will have API keys. And so try and get the API keys, tell Claude you have an API key, and then create that MCP server. And then say to Claude even like, hey, Claude, I've got access to Clary, I've got access to Salesforce, and I've got access to Granola and Pendo MCP. Based on what you know of those MCP servers, and what use cases could we stand up here, Claude, to make my PKM system even better? Honestly, the amount of rabbit holes you can go down here is quite frankly nuts.
That's great. Looking at Cursor, is there, lots of people have been posting about Claude Code recently. Is there a difference between using Claude as your model inside Cursor and using Claude Code in the terminal or somewhere else, or is this all the same thing?
Yeah, great question, actually. So the hooks feature that I talked about before, Claude, I think Anthropic, what they're trying to do is get people, I think what they're trying to do is get people moving more into their CLI for Claude Code, because that's where they kind of just want to capture all that value, right? Me interacting with Claude Code through Cursor is just, they just become a dumb pipe kind of thing, right? So what they've started doing is things like Claude hooks. Hooks can only run in terminal or the CLI or Claude desktop if you have the desktop app installed. So there's lots of good added value that I'm creating through hooks that if I have a chat with Claude in here, the hooks will not kick in. So I then need to be mindful, it's a bit of a mental juggle, of actually when should I be in terminal versus in here. Now, the only reason I play in here and Cursor is because I want these multi-agents, because I might be firing up lots of different things to work across my PKM system at the same time, which you can't easily do, what you can't do in terminal or in or Claude so easily. What you could do, I guess, just having said that, you could have different terminal windows open up at the same time for different tasks. But again, it just becomes a bit messy. So yeah, it's a bit of both is the short answer, and depending on what I'm doing. If I want the system to be learning as I'm working with it on a particular project, I'll go into terminal. And if it's just kind of, quickly kind of running through all my projects and understanding where I'm at with them, I'll kind of fire up multiple agents in Cursor.
Great. And you can just create a kind of a .claude file in any local folder then. And if you're using Claude and it's in that workspace, it will start reading those instructions. And that's your kind of baseline kind of system prompt.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. And, a good thing to do, maybe I'll just pull up my Claude MD file, actually, see what's in there. I haven't looked at it in ages. Hopefully there's nothing too embarrassing in there.
Maybe we can zoom in a little bit because this is quite small.
Yeah.
Sorry, after this, I'll stop hogging the conversation because I see there's a bunch more questions have popped up in the chat.
That's cool. I'll share in a second. Okay. Just having a quick scan, just make sure it's okay. Can you pull up the Claude MD file within my Claude City folder, please? And, and even if you like, I just got this wrong. It said in filter. I don't know how I got that, but it will still, you don't have to be word perfect with your AI at all. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows that right now. It does forgive quite well. Okay, so let me show you what it's got in here. I'm just going to open this in preview mode. Okay, so it's kind of got a kind of overview, like what is the system all about? Who is Dave? You know, what the folder structure is. This is great because every time now you go chat to Claude, with this knowledge in there, the Claude MD file gets invoked, so it knows exactly where to find things, right? So that's the first key principle there. It's really, really important. Look at these session start behaviors. The minute I start a session in here, it's going to check to see if a daily digest from my YouTube Intel has been created or not. If it doesn't, it's then going to run the full pipeline. All of this code it's created, I've got no idea what's in here, but that's how you pull together all the YouTube transcripts. If a daily digest exists, but there's some pending videos remain to process, just basically sort everything out. Newsletter Intel, same thing. If a daily digest has not been created, automatically run at session start the Intel on all your newsletters that you're following. Same for Granola. So again, this Claude MD file knows exactly what to do every time I start with it. Okay. LinkedIn Intel. I've got this thing actually. Ed, you might be interested in this. This might be too. I use Phantom Buster to find out my latest followers on LinkedIn. And if anyone's VP level plus, let me know because I want to see if I can help my sales team and do a pitch in there to that company. All my Gong recordings, momentum, we call it now here that we have, etc. Now this is where it gets really interesting. So now, Claude Code. So basically, we run this script every day to have a look at Claude Code and the Claude Code Reddit community and all of the blog and the change log, and tell me like how we can actually be using Claude Code in more effective ways. It's got some content idea generation based on all the intel from the market. So again, all this is getting set up at start of every single day. So I'll keep going on. Then core behaviors, right? You know, what you want typically in terms of how it to behave. Challenge ideas, build on other ideas, automatically update people's person pages, right? And when significant context about that person is shared. And then this is the golden one, silent learning capture. You know, every time there's a mistake that's been made by the AI, there's a gap in documentation, or you've seen a pattern in how Dave works, you know, basically silently append that to the session learnings files. And then that session learnings file will basically go into another command, which then says, okay, well, we've made a few cock-ups this week. Like, how can we improve the system, right? So yeah, so it's just really, 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 really good. It's really, really good. And what I'm doing, like I say, this podcast I'm coming out today, coming out with actually on Thursday, will be essentially the bulk of what we have here. I'm showing you here today, will be available in a GitHub repo that I'll be calling Dex, and I'll be giving that out to those that follow me, so that we can share this and get other people up and running as quickly as possible. Because there's an awful lot of good content about using Claude as PKM systems. But there's very little out there that actually helps people get running with it very, very quickly. And that's hopefully what that repo will be. Cool.
A few more questions in the chat, Dave. So Alex is asking, or actually a couple of people are asking this, if it's possible to use Notion as your kind of like main repository for documents, or if you have to use Obsidian or your kind of local folders.
I'm not using Notion, and I use Obsidian because it's all text files on my machine, and it's just easier for this then to access it. Yeah. Otherwise, you'd be doing everything in Notion itself. I haven't played with Notion much lately. I did meet someone recently who said they can do most of what I'm talking about in Notion. I find that hard to believe, but Notion obviously have come on a long way recently in what they're doing, but I don't know enough about it to, yeah, to say to what extent you could replicate most of this in there.
Could you connect Notion to Cursor to Claude Code?
I don't believe so. I don't think you make that content's made available. It's not on your machine locally, so yeah, I won't be able to read it locally.
Yeah. Saga's asking about Claude Cowork. Do you have a view on this and where this might go?
Yeah, I think for people that want access, and the same principles, right? You can just go in there and access all your files and give it access to a folder and it can do stuff. But what then becomes hard, right, is like those automations. That's nothing that you can do easily within Cowork at all. So I couldn't have like it running and processing all my intel from newsletters and from YouTube and bringing things in from Clary and from Momentum and Salesforce with MCP servers. None of that's going to work. It's just going to work with flat text files, which is useful, but you're missing the trick in terms of the automation and having a system that learns over time, improves over time, and becomes far better to partner with you as you dance with it every other day. But absolute genius move. I think what they and OpenAI are trying to do now is get more into enterprise use cases and moving away increasingly so from non-engineering use or towards non-engineering use cases and get into enterprise. So I think we'll see a lot more from them on that. But it's been bonkers. Like they built that in 1.5 weeks. It's crazy, right? Again, using concepts like the Ralph Wiggum plugin and all the secret sauce that they got built internally. So it's this is the world we're in, right? And yeah, to build something like that within such a short space of time is quite frankly bonkers.
Yeah, super. I think it's such an interesting space that.
Yeah,
Simon's asking if you've got any top tips for creating agents that represent particular roles within a team, like product managers, business analysts, that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
yeah, brilliant. 100%. So thanks for bringing this up. Whoever brought that up. Sorry, I forget the name. I was going to the shops the other day, and I wanted to write this article that shall be posting about my setup, and it's quite a lengthy article. So what I found was I had the AI look at my README file and my entire code base to kind of work with the kind of a starter for 10 article. And I wanted to give it some feedback. And as I gave it feedback, the article went off the rails. The AI just took it apart and it just got worse and worse and worse. And I was like, oh, can we go back to version 1, please? So I was like, hold on a second. So I went to Claude on mobile. I said, hey, Claude, Dave here. I'm going to describe a bunch of work I need done when I'm creating articles. And I want you to come up with a fantastically rich agent and sub-agent architecture for me that I can then create a PRD and then give this into Claude to build out the agent infrastructure. My God, it created 22 sub-agents, all doing different things, like all looking at the same article, all running in parallel with their own 200K context windows. And so one was like for the overall no arc, one was for, just like how novel this is, one was for clarity, one was for like, unbelievable. And then I go back into it and go, yeah, that's okay. Can I have a few more agents, please? What else can we do? Just here's some more agents for you, Dave. So yeah, look into it because you can like if you describe and again that trick, right? Claude Mobile voice notes, who these people are, right? What these jobs to be done are, then it will come up with its own optimal agent infrastructure for you. And it's just fascinating to watch because it's just ever so powerful. The quality now, I now run my article through the review article agent, and it's just like it takes 3 minutes, but my God, it's like boom. It's great. It's more successful as a result.
Amazing. Look, I don't know if other people have questions. Please do stick them in the chat and we'll get around to them as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Dave, another kind of question from me, like, a lot of work in organizations is, it's social, it's with other people, you're kind of collaborating on documents and things like that. Does your system with Claude allow you to kind of like work on those shared documents? Or is this purely like a personal kind of productivity system?
Yeah. The short answer is so my team here at Pendo are not yet doing what I'm doing. So yeah, we'll all be kind of Google Docs and what have you. So sometimes if it's a doc to work on, I'll just take a copy of it. I'm not too sure which version. I know for the free version of Google Docs, you can't select all copy as markdown. but my version you can. And so if you are ever seeing the ability to copy or paste as Markdown, always use that when you're playing with the AI, because then those tables you have in the Google Doc, all that gets brilliantly kind of carried across into the chat. And then once you then update it, and then you can then carry it back, paste in as Markdown. So yeah, it's a bit of kind of copy and paste for me at the moment. But yeah, I'm still flying at a rate of knots, quite frankly. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Um, Michael's asking, yeah, it seems you can have your personal AI budget exceed $100 or $200 a month for so many tools. Yeah, you're paying for Replit, Claude Code, ChatGPT. Any advice here? What's do you know what you're spending on AI tools at the moment on a monthly basis, Dave?
My husband does. He's not very happy. I'm spending about, I think, about £90 personally a month. But what I'm doing increasingly is a lot of the tools now I have. One I was using recently and I talked about before was sunsama.com in my AI presentation in Producon. It's a tool that lets you block out your calendar, not just for meetings, but for the work you want to get done. And I was paying 20 quid a month for it, and basically went to Claude Code one morning, spun up an agent, and said, "Hey, can you have a look at the help page documentation, extract it all down through Firecrawl, give me the jobs to be done, create PRDs for all the features, and then I apply the Ralph Wiggum plugin on the whole thing. The whole thing got built by lunchtime, and I now cancel my 20 quid a month subscription." So that works for software that you're subscribed to that can typically be built by the AI. And when it comes to, hey, can you build me a version of Replit? Well, no. But honestly, I don't think you need Replit. I think Claude Code, really, honestly, it's the one to watch, particularly with the new task orchestration capability that they've released recently, the Ralph Wiggum kind of thing. You can build pretty much what you need, I think, in Claude Code. So I would go in all in on Claude is my key thing. I'm not being sponsored by them. I've been a fan of them for over a year now, but they're definitely the team to watch. I think they're going to, yeah, them and Gemini.
Just on
Should
that
we talk?
note,
Oh,
I thought,
should we talk? Oh, sorry, go on.
no, sorry, you go for it, Dave.
I've just something else. Like, should we do a bit of vibe coding as well?
Yeah, let's do a bit of that.
Okay. I'll let you finish what you want to say then.
Oh, I was just saying I'd seen it. I actually saw a webinar last week where a company was talking about having gone like all in on kind of multi-agent coding. So a bit like Dave, but writing code. They'd written 300,000 lines of code in 6 weeks, and they said that engineers were spending $1,000 a month on tokens just for building. So uh, their view was that everyone's going to spend a lot more on AI tools very shortly.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, being asked in the chat, would you drop ChatGPT in favor of Claude? 100% yes. Because of what they're doing, the 4.5 is a fantastic model, Opus, in terms of reasoning. But from a coding point of view, it's just they're really on fire, and you're seeing the pace of execution there. I think OpenAI, ChatGPT, that company is kind of it's a bit lost in terms of where it can play. And I think, yeah, definitely Anthropic have definitely got an awful lot more wind behind them. So yeah, if you're looking to replace it, definitely go Claude. So let me talk you through vibe coding. So this is bonkers as well, right? So I just mentioned like how I managed to get the AI to kind of look at the help pages of a product and build it for me. What's great now is that you can just bring your ideas so much more easily to life now. And so I did an episode in this, episode 7 of the Vibe PM. Have a look at it because it's quite bonkers. What I do now from a vibe coding point of view is I'll go into I'll start in Gemini typically. You don't have to. You can start wherever you want to start. Like Lovable is also fine. And so I'll go in, and what's great now is when you want to go and build in AI Studio, you can essentially, let's just change some stuff. Let me just see. Bear with me. Okay. So they have, yeah, okay, they put it down here. So I typically will go into AI Studio or Lovable, build the guts of an app and have back and forth with it. I do choose AI Studio over Lovable because you've got the full power of what Google are up to with Gemini. So whether it's kind of bringing in kind of speech to text, whether it's kind of, animating images with video, it's a whole bunch of different capabilities, Nana Banana, that you now can bring in quite easily into your app to get it off the ground. And it's good also coming back with other suggestions to extend your idea forward. When you've then got that to a point where you are, say, all good, Then what I would typically do is, I think I'm in the wrong. Okay. Over here, then to take it up to GitHub. So when you take it up to GitHub, then you take that up to GitHub, push it up to your GitHub repo, and then what you should be doing is then when you go into Cursor, it's too many screens. I should share my full screen again. Sorry, might be easier. And then when you open up a new session in Cursor, then you go in here and you basically clone the repo. So you put the URL in, it pulls it down. Then you're off to the races because then you got Claude then to work on top of the idea, right? It's synced with your repo. You can start spinning up multiple agents that you can't do in Lovable, you can't do in Gemini. And then you can start really rapidly iterating on your ideas. So from a vibe coding point of view, I think that approach works really, really well. Gemini and Lovable are good at getting the guts of your product pulled together. But then when you want to really start then building on it at pace, do that trick. It's very, very effective. I was, I don't know if I can show it to you. I'll see if I can find it. But I was going down to a conference in Auckland to present on KPI driver trees. Most organizations don't have them. Atlassian recently said that 12% of product managers feel disconnected from dollar outcomes at board level. And so I thought, hey, why don't we build a KPI driver tree? Let me pull it up for you. It's bonkers. And it literally just took about, I kid you not, about an hour and a half to pull together. And see if I can find it. I'll actually, Ed, you can maybe share it with the people afterwards. Well, what I wanted to show you was just this idea of being able to, yeah, it might be. This is it, cool. So what I did was basically take, and this is the point here, sorry, stepping back. Storytelling is the most important thing we do as product people, and we need to be, and now we can better storytell, right, to get people aligned with their ideas. And so, yeah, we built this whole thing in about an hour and a half, where it would look at a particular company's publicly available information and then pull together what we think a KPI driver tree could be for that company, and then how we could use Pendo to push on those metrics and connect them to dollar outcomes. But it was so easy, right? And then from there, we were able to then like go down the ladder, explain, understand everything. And this where it became quite powerful. This trick I wanted to show you was doing a red team analysis. So AI is probabilistic. And so the first pass of it's always going to be a little bit ropey. And so now with red teaming, you have the AI tell the AI off. So the AI looks at the metrics that it came up with and said, that was bloody stupid, you idiot. And then comes up with something really, really good. You just accept everything and then it pulls it back in. So always my point here, have always use like, hey AI, can you please red team this for me? And it will just rip itself to shreds and come up with something far more solid. It's very, very powerful. But the point here is like, look at what workflow you have in your organization and just have chats with Cursor or with Gemini or Lovable and try and replicate them where you can, because it is so, so easy. And particularly when you get those multi-agents working together in parallel, you'll have something built very, very quickly indeed.
That's awesome. I know we're nearly out of time. We've just got two more questions, I think, which are in the chat. So why don't we answer those and then we'll wrap up. So Alexa's just asking, what's the best way to start out? She's trying to keep costs low, but she's got lots of ideas. Like, do you have any kind of tips there?
Yeah, Cursor Pro for $20 a month, that will give you an awful lot to go with. So I definitely that should be your first takeaway. And then go in to Cursor and just I'll have a repo out on Thursday called Dex. I'll be sharing it in my 5 p.m. podcast. And that will then give you infrastructure and kind of scaffolding to get going with the self-learning system that I just been discussing in my system. And I'll be sharing that with the wider community on Thursday afternoon, UK time. And yeah, just start playing with it, right? And then just start having chats, talk. Download, if you can afford it, FlowVoice as well. You got a free version of FlowVoice, play with it. And once you hit your ceiling, obviously that means you want it. So then go pay for that as well. It'll pay for itself in dividends.
Super. And then Tim's asking, how do you share and collaborate with colleagues, your workflows and tools, so they can use the same things?
Yeah, really interestingly, I mentioned to our executive Pendo, and there's a huge opportunity to take like this repo, right, that I'll be sharing on Thursday, but creating one for our company at Pendo. And so you could imagine like it has all the context, all the knowledge, all the kind of where we're going, all our OKRs, it has everything. And just people clone it, right? All the knowledge of how Pendo itself works, everything's in there. And then all of these commands we think you might need in your role. you can even imagine having that repo unfurl itself differently for someone like Ed or someone like Andrew who's working in different parts of the organization. And so I think if it was me running my company, I would have a repo of something like this PKM system tailored for each function in my organization. And then that becomes the consistent brain with which people partner with the AI on.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that's what we'll
Dave,
see this year. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm also kind of very bullish on this kind of whole way of working. I think is going to explode over the next year or two. Um, Dave, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I've stuck your LinkedIn URL in the chat, and we'll be sending people a quick follow-up email just with that link and, as I say, a link to the recording of this as well. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom and expertise with us. It's yeah, always like fascinating and inspiring to see what you're doing.
Thank you. An absolute privilege. And I'm a huge fan of what you do. And thank you for doing what you do for the community.
Super. All right. See you
Cheers.
soon. Bye.
Bye.